addiction, today's topic. It's a really complicated topic because the core reasons of why this problem even exists are really closely related with essentially existential questions. And all those questions are, they're deeply, to say the minimum, controversial. Nowadays, this question is even more like remote to people, to discussion, because everyone thinks that the way I live is the correct way, and anyone can live the way they want. And I don't know, but from what I've read, from what I've studied, from what I've heard, it does not seem to be that way at all. And that's the way I see that's really closely intertwined with the problem of a lot of problems with the addiction problem. Most important thing to understand is what it actually is, because all people hear about it and they casually, I guess, throw around the word addiction and phrase it in any way they like and seem fit, and I guess that's fine. That's better than not saying nothing. But the problem with that is that it gets really boundaries of what it is and of what actually it is gets really blurred out, and so many people talk about it as if they understand, and then the people who actually could say more strictly, more categorically, give you more definition about what it actually is, they get left behind, because the mass of people who don't know are way greater than the people who actually know. So then you end up in this situation where you feel like you hear a lot about it and you feel like you understand, but there's so much information and so much conflicting and confusing information about it, you're just lost about what it actually is. So yeah, I think that would be the closest point of what I want to address, the core of what causes addiction. I wouldn't even call it an addiction. I think the better word would be to be bound by something. And the reason why I think that's a better word is because an addicted person is a person who forgoes everything else for something, and that something is the point of the substance, the behavior, whatever it is that they are addicted to. And the core mechanic of this is not an anomaly. It's the same mechanic everyone has, just that in general population, people, the relationship between all the different things they are bounded by. So an example, hunger, security, social relations, sexual relations, everything that they are bounded by biologically to survive, to feel good, to feel safe, to live their lives. The relationships between those elements, those factors, those boundaries are working. Let's just say that they understand the way they relate to each other in a functional manner. For example, let's just take two elements. Since they want to have other people around them, family, friends, and they want to eat, they want both of these. So it's not a question that they will choose one without another. They want both. They will not engage in acquiring each of them in cost of any of them. A normal person understands that they cannot put all their effort or sacrifice their friends for the food. And tomorrow, yesterday, whatever. Why? Because they will lose their friends. So they try to balance out how much and how much do, how much they sacrifice for the food, and how much they sacrifice for their friends. And that's the balance that plays between these two elements which have to be in place. And that's the same way with all the other elements. They are bounded by them. You could say they are addicted to them. But that's the reason why I'm not choosing the addicted word, because it's wrong. To understand the relationship correctly, it's wrong. An addicted person that we call has this dynamic, you could say flawed, but for some reason they are foregoing all those other things for one of the thing. The core problem is that, well, you could say a hypothetical situation that there is a certain thing that for which you should forgo all the other things, and that would be the most important thing. For example, like the number one virtue, like something like, for example, the truth, the seeking of the truth. You should forgo everything else for the seeking of the truth. That could be logical. The problem arises with people who have addictions is that for some reason they get, you could say, pulled into this worldview that one thing that they're doing is more important than any other thing. Of course, you have to consider how addicted to that they are, but if you just want to understand the principle, that's the key principle. If they're addicted to it, they will forgo other things for it. It might not seem like it in the start, in certain circumstances, but if they're pushed, that's actually formal criteria of how you can strongly, predict if they forgo all the other things they have to have, if they lose their control, if they're completely obsessed. And there's one other that I cannot remember, but well, that's the idea. They will forgo other things. That thing that they are forgoing all the other things for will not sustain them. So they're in a dynamic which will eventually cause harm to them and most likely to other people. What you don't know is probably that why does that happen and how does that happen? I don't think anyone can answer that question, because like specifically to answer why did someone get addicted, you would have to, it will depend on their situation, but in a more abstract sense, in a mechanistic sense, in a principle sense, they were vulnerable, or you could, maybe more correct way to say would be that they lacked something so much enough that in the moment of weakness they saw, let's say pornography. They saw pornography as the thing which will make them feel better, which will solve their problem. It could be one moment, and that wouldn't be the whole picture, but that's just a start. And why is that? The situation can preset other steps, which then you could say anchors in, or setups, or seeds, and then breeds the addiction. So for example, a person is struggling with finding a partner and developing a serious romantic and sexual relationship. One of the main drivers that push them towards that in some ways is the sexual drive. And one of the ways you can relieve that pressure is by basically by masturbating and by also indulging in pornography while doing that. Even what I said in the moment of when someone would do that, they might not even think afterwards, maybe in the same moment, that that will solve their problems. But that's the I would say that's the most scary bit about this whole process, is that we like to think that the things we think and the way we understand ourselves and the way we perceive ourselves that's all there is. That's us. But that's not really how it is. That's the conscious part of us, and there's a really big unconscious part of us that we have, let's say, little access to. And that unconscious part, you can imagine that part is all the things, for example, the way you react, how intensely or how not intensely, or the thoughts you get, or you could imagine this, the way you are, that part you understand that you are, that you feel that you do not choose to be. That's all a part of unconscious. That's all in the off the scenes that you have no access to. So why is that relevant? It's relevant because every step you make, every decision you make, you change your environment, you get a certain response. That response is marked and tracked by you could imagine like this, by your unconscious. It's marked in the unconscious, which then adjusts certain elements which are related by the thing that was marked. So in an example, you could imagine it like you were feeling horny, aroused, whatever, and you chose to engage in masturbation or pornography. Remember what I mentioned, that finding a partner is one of the factors, one of the drives which are motivating you to do that, to develop a romantic but also a sexual relationship, is the sexual drive. So in whatever amount you might think, but a certain amount, it is influencing you to engage in exploration, in the search of the partner. So that drive, when you're aroused, when you're horny, is going on. And if you then engage in pornography and you get satisfaction from it, that's satisfaction, physiological response. If you get satisfied with something, whatever you've done, if you got a certain satisfaction, a dopamine hit, as people call it, the thing you did to get that gets reinforced. And what does that mean? The next time you will have this need, your unconscious will prioritize all the patterns of systems which played to get you that result. So if you imagine before you went to masturbate to pornography, all the things that happened, all the thoughts that ran, all the things the way you felt and thought, they will get reinforced and marked as the patterns which help you reach the goal. So the next time, when you'll be feeling aroused, horny, whatever, the thought of doing that will come quicker, and it will be stronger, and it will be more convincing, because your body is learning. It's learning that's how we do it. That's the steps which push you deep down into addiction. That's how you train yourself and condition yourself to that one thing. That's how we get this. I gave you an example with pornography, but that's the same with everything else. Every single thing you do, if you engage in something and you're feeling that you like this, any positive emotion. If that thing you're doing is not something you would deem as good, something you would want to continue, you should be. I'm lacking the words to even describe of how, maybe not concerned, but how vigilant you should be about what are you doing, because this is no joke. Like, it's easy to think that what you're doing is because you chose to do this. Well, you might end up in a situation where you will be cursing everyone, God, life, everything around, because you will not be able to comprehend why are you bent towards and so obsessed with something so bad, even though you consciously and rationally, when you're thinking about, you can find reasons why that's bad, but you feel like that you as a body, as a person, is just split. You think one thing and your body reacts to another thing. That's not a situation you want to be in. But that's how you get there. If you creatively engage in something that gives you satisfaction, you will reinforce that pattern of behavior to yourself, and your body will seek it out. Don't think that you have will to resist that. You don't. No, you can imagine it like this. The leverage you have to resist an urge to do something, action to like 100 times of engaging in something like this. For you to resist that, you will have to conjure up a situation. So imagine some situation. The thing you will imagine, and the way where you imagine it, what will be bad and how it will be bad, all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, the emotional effect from that has to be stronger than what your body knows from all the times you conditioned to it. So take the satisfaction you got one time and then amplify it by all the times you've done it. And that's what you're going against. So if you've taught yourself that that's the way you do it for hundreds of times, in the moment there might not be nothing you can do on your own to resist the urge. So going back to what I was saying before about the lack of need, which then predisposes a person to a vulnerable position, which then makes them basically prone to develop this dysfunctional relationship with a certain substance or a behavior pattern, does not matter. Well, that's the lack of knowing how to manage different parts of your life together so you could live your life happily. It's the competence in how to know how to make friends, how to get a partner, how to make food, how to do your job, how to take care of yourself, all of those things. If you lack something, you will suffer the consequences, and those consequences will make you vulnerable to a temptation, which then can be basically, which if not kept in check, then you can engage in it, and then you can I guess one of the other questions people can have, or have, at least what I've heard is that, why do not, when people when the addicts, they understand what's wrong, they can tell themselves, they can actually, if they're quite into this, they can tell you quite elaborately, why this is bad and all the details about it, but they cannot do nothing about it, they cannot stop. And that's actually the consequence of what I've explained. That disconnect between where your body is conditioned to go and what's right. Because of what's right, you can be aware of and you can think. That's the ability we have as humans, to think rationally and analyze things. But your body might be elsewhere. So that's one of the things actually, that's one of the things to keep in mind, is you want to have your body and your mind as aligned as possible. And all the disalignments you should watch and you should address as quickly as you can. And being truthful, that's one of I would say that's the main path there. Because if you're not truthful, you will be never able to understand what's going on and what's right. So that's the first thing, to understand what's right and what you're doing wrong, and then try to do it better. So just to summarize, the main thing, what I wanted to say is that addiction is not something that you get because you engage with a certain substance that's deemed highly addictive. It's something that you fall into by not being aware of what is wrong with your life and what are you missing. Because if you're addicted, or you know that you're prone to addiction, there is space in you for that addiction. And you can imagine like this. If everything is good, like your relationships are solid, your work life is solid, your physical health is solid, mental health is solid, everything is on track, and you're going through life, you will feel great. First of all, you will feel great. And that's not to say that you will always feel great, like an ecstasy always, or joy always. No, that's not how it is. But there's the normal fluctuations. But you will not look back on your life and think that's bad. No, you will just be like, sometimes something's bad, but and all things considered, it's pretty good. Well, then there is no way for you to get addicted. There is a more nuanced, I guess, debate to be had on the really potent substances, but the principle still stays the same. It's just, I guess, I'm imagining that it's a more nuanced because it's really hard to when you're getting substances which can skyrocket your physiological responses to degrees your body does not experience. It's really just hard to know then to evaluate what kind of an impact would that leave on you. So that's why I'm saying it's more nuanced, because if a certain substance can do such an impact, for example, on your dopamine levels, it's hard to say, depending on what kind of level you reach, it's hard to say, what kind of leaving consequence you would have. So, but in all principle of how does addiction develop, how is it possible? I explained the principle. There has to be space. There has to be there has to be need for a certain satisfaction, for a certain escape from maybe suffering, or maybe escape from not feeling something, or an escape from loneliness, or maybe from thinking about something, distracting yourself there. That thing you're engaging in, is it a substance or a behavior? It has to give you something. If you're pleased with your life, it has nothing to give you, only to take away, because if you engage in it, usually there's almost always a cost. So that's this. I don't know, is it a secret, but I guess that's the part. Yeah. So I'm thinking also of doing a more, I guess, technically structured, and I guess I'm thinking of adding a more visual aid to the explanation of the principle and with a purpose in the community I'm building. It's in the link, but I'll see.